I've been thinking about this game, of course. In the last video, I started moving forward on the idea about the capitalists left Earth with all the stuff thing that I've been ruminating on, honestly, for quite a while. Today, I kind of wanted to start this. I do want to get into actually designing a game in this episode, besides the legwork that I'd like to go through. But I wanted to talk about some of my concerns with the setting. I wanted to talk about my concerns with the setting backdrop. The quick summary of the setting backdrop that I'm working from now is that a climate catastrophe started happening and then was delayed for a bit by bullshit Elon Musk style absolute garbage that people lapped up. And eventually that stopped working, so then all the rich people took all the good stuff and left Earth. Took all the information, and so you're left with terraforming robots and then also people that still live there but don't have much, that are trying to just get by. And that's who you'd be playing as, is people that are left behind. I've got a few problems with this backdrop. I didn't fully express them in the first episode. I kind of referred to it as me not having the writing chops to do this right. But I think really what I meant is there's a lot of ways that you could do this wrong, and I don't really want to do it wrong. One of the big things is that I don't, as a person, I don't know if maybe my worldview has gotten less doomsday-ish since first thinking about this idea or what, but there's not really any way that I could see this happening. I mean, obviously it wouldn't happen. That's the point of this kind of thing. But I just don't see how all of Earth's info, or all of humanity's accumulated knowledge, which is the property of all humans, would just leave the planet. Obviously I could see people like Elon Musk trying to leave Earth and set up their garbage little fucking work camps on Mars and ruin that. But there's always still going to be stuff left behind, and it would take so much to obliterate human society, right? Across the globe. You could maybe do it, if this was a game set in Pittsburgh, where I'm from, where I'm most familiar with, then obviously yes, you could obliterate society here, but that would be catastrophic. And I was trying to, with this setting, I explicitly did not want it to be post-apocalyptic. I wanted it to be post-Anthropocene, so the Anthropocene being humans being the largest factor of life on Earth. We kind of, for better or worse, run this place, run this rock. We run the rock. We are here to rock and run the rock. What was I going on about? So yeah, there's just a global concern with this, barring catastrophe, it doesn't make any sense. So it's a backdrop that might be fun as a one shot. It's a backdrop that might be fun to just explore briefly, to be haha, yeah, capitalism sure is a death cult. But I feel it does a huge disservice to a lot of people. It does a huge disservice to say that humanity's medical knowledge is gone. Does a huge disservice to, say, a country like Cuba that, they wouldn't just take all the knowledge and leave. They are very good about sharing that and trying to share that despite decades of brutal sanctions against them. So that leads to my next concern about the backdrop, which is if I can't at least point to what might be happening around the world, so let's say I provide a map and eagle-eyed observers see the three rivers of Pittsburgh, and so it's okay, the default setting of this game is long time from now in a place that was once called Pittsburgh. Already we get into a bunch of problems with America, but I don't think I have to go into that here. But I have no idea what would be happening in this scenario anywhere else in the world. So you run into the issue, I think, with this setting of like, yes, it's easy to say like, oh, this happened to the world, and then you're playing in this place in the world, but the planet is very big, and there are a lot of people on it, and I just can't see myself necessarily running a game like this, and so how can I make one and expect people to run it? Because it just, there's too much that happens, right? There's too many people in the world that would fight back, that are constantly fighting back, that are fighting back right now against this stuff, that to say it can all just end because some people left is honestly shitty. And maybe I'm thinking too hard about it. Who knows? Probably not. So I start thinking about like, what can I do? And really I land on one. I am starting to see the reason why of my games so far, none of them have a concrete setting. My design process hasn't really found its way into a concrete setting. And I think that part of that is how I interact with games. I don't often take the setting that is given to me by a game unless it's like a one-shot type of game. When I play Blaze in the Dark, I play in a custom setting. When I played D&D, I would never have bought a module because we could just come up with it ourselves. Not that there's anything wrong with that form of play. Like, if you like picking up a module and playing from that, that's great. I own a bunch of, like, not D&D modules, but zine modules for different games, and I'll probably never run one, but it's fun to see like what people come up with, and I think that kind of reading that kind of stuff can help you when you're GMing games, even if you never crack that thing open. But I don't do that. I've lost my plot. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go forward with something like, maybe people left, it's not clear, but there are fewer people than there used to be. There was not some large catastrophe. Also, the world is very small. And I'm going to lean towards, like, maybe there's magic, so maybe this is a fantasy world, only because that's fun as shit in games to have magic. And my original idea didn't really have any room for magic, but maybe we're going to leave that door open, as it were. So, I think now is when, probably fucking 8 minutes into this, I'm going to start thinking about mechanics and start thinking about a game, a GM-full game. A game with a GM. I'm going to think about a GM-full game based on No Stone Unturned, about trying to exist in a world that is not as dominated by humans as it used to be. Or by people, not humans. It doesn't have to be humans. You can have non-human persons. Why don't just start writing stuff. I have this whiteboard that I figured I could write stuff down on, and am slowly realizing might have been a foolish idea, but let's see how it goes. So here's what I'm thinking, right? I am making a game, and I've already decided it's going to be at least loosely based on No Stone Unturned. So, with that, I have a mechanical framework. No Stone Unturned consists of, each character has aspects and moods, and both of those are rolled every time you roll the dice. I don't think I'm going to keep the moods in this game. I've already made a game with moods. I don't necessarily need that again. I'll just play this one if that's what I want to do. What does a character have that allows that, or that factors in whenever they act? So different games do different things. Obviously there are stats, in my game there's moods, in other games there's emotions. Spire and shit have domains. I don't understand what that is. So what can play into the dice roll? Games have stats, games have, No Stone Unturned has moods, but I don't think I'm keeping moods. So I think I would like to keep the aspects, aka the stats, that I have in No Stone Unturned, and I think those are going to be mapped to a die size. D4, D6, D8. We'll see if we want to get a little bit bigger than that. We'll see if we want to bring in D10s, D12s. But for now, we can have stats of D4, D6, D8. I don't know if there will just be 3, maybe 6, maybe more than that. We'll figure it out. I think one thing that I'd like to have maybe would be Perils. So I mentioned in the previous video that in No Stone Unturned, I think the core thing is a dichotomy. And so in that game you're always picking, is the character at risk or is the world at risk? And while the world being at risk versus the character might not be central to the system, the dichotomy of X versus Y every time you roll the dice is. I think for now what I want to do is I want to consider that to be static. I don't necessarily want to have to swap back and forth between, oh, this time you want this die to be higher, that time you want that die to be higher. Right now, I want to explore what it's like to just have the one. We've got our stats that are D4, D6, D8, and we can keep, for now, we can keep that to be body, mind, and heart, but maybe that'll expand as we go. But the other thing that I want to do is create Perils. This is an idea that I just had, which I think is related to, I think this is related to domains. I never understood domains in the one-shot, 3-session one-shot that I played of Heart. Heart, the game based on Spire, which I talked about in the last video, which is based on the resistance system that was created for Spire. There, you have your stats, you have your skills in that game, so things like kill, and then there are domains, and so both of those can add to your thing. But so this isn't quite that. Fuck. I'm thinking the perils are like what is at risk, right? So the peril could be, I mean, shit, you could even do body, mind, heart. You could do... That's actually kind of good. What if the stats and the perils were the same? And so you've got stats as a character, and you've got perils. I'm writing the same thing. And the stats are what you're good at, and the perils are what's at risk. So the stats, if I have a high body stat, that means I'm good at using my body. I'm good at, and so these will probably have to expand beyond just the 3, but we'll figure it out. So like I'm good at using my body, I'm good at climbing, I'm good at jumping, body stuff. Perils, what's at risk? Oh, I'm climbing? Well, then my body's probably at risk because if I fall, I'm going to hurt my body. So you've got stats. I'm writing the same thing again, perils, and then a third thing to track harm, which we'll just call harmables for now, but that's obviously no good. So stat, you roll your stat versus your peril, and if things go bad, perhaps those things get harmed. Oh boy, where did we end up here? So a quick summary of the brain blast I had, because it's probably incoherent. No Stone Unturned has aspects, and you roll those against your moods, so the mood your character's in, and the one that you want to win depends on what's at risk. So I think I want to get rid of that, because I already made that. That's a game that exists that you could just go play. I could just go play. So what can I do that can keep that dice versus dice thing? And what I'm going to do is create stats and then have perils, and those are the same things. So right now we're going to keep the aspects from No Stone Unturned of body, mind, and heart, which I think that will get expanded as we go forward. But basically, you're going to roll your stats. When you go to do something, you're going to roll the stat of the thing that you're doing, and then versus the peril of the thing that's at risk, or the thing that's going to get most in the way. Ooh, the thing that's going to get most in the way, I think, is cool. So if you're climbing, maybe you roll your body, and then maybe you're going to get in your head the most, so you roll against mind. So this is a body versus mind check. If your body die is higher than your mind die when you roll them, then you win and you're going to add details to the scene. But if your mind die is higher, then you probably get in your own head and the GM will add details to the scene. So that's where we're at right now. I think that is good. I think that's good. Because I love the idea of like a body versus body check. Like if you're doing something, and this will probably play into, like, Forged in the Dark games have... Yeah, this is good. So Forged in the Dark games have the mechanic where, or have the insistence that the GM never says the skill that you're rolling. You never say it. But yeah, the player comes up with it. So I think what we would do here is the player comes up with the stat and the GM comes up with the peril, but you say them like at the same time. So that you can't. I mean, gamers. You can't. And you gotta be honest. You gotta be honest. I'll have to come up with something that, like, makes sure that you're not just picking the one that's highest. Yeah. Okay. So what else do we have in No Stone Unturned? We've got skills. In No Stone Unturned there are skills. They are fill in the blank. They just add one. They add or subtract one to your die roll based on... They help you. And then you've got sentiments, things you hold dear, which you can risk to get advantage, but that might need to be workshopped. We'll see. For the skills, I love the open-ended nature that I put into here, but there's a chance that I end up with like a skill tree or something like that. Maybe for... Well, actually, I'm all over the place today, and I hope that's fine. This is probably a more accurate depiction of my game design process compared to the last two videos of my, which is like a brainstorming thing. I am bouncing off the walls as far as the ideas go, just to try to find the right one, which is, I mean, I think that's important to show, and we'll see how this one cuts together and how it looks, and if maybe future ones I adjust the format. But right now I am just having this out. So yes, I would like there to be playbooks in this game, because I like playbooks. Playbooks being character classes, playbooks being whatever they are, whatever name I end up on. I want there to be a character class that you pick. I want to be able to pick this and then get access to these moves, and that fills in something about my character, because I find that to be a lot of fun. I like it when it's not there as well, but that's what that game's for. So I want to make a game with playbooks that have a bunch of moves that like push on all the mechanics that I'll end up coming on. Stuff that interacts with the perils, stuff that interacts with the stats. So that is going to be a design choice, and that will require me to come up with the theme of this game a little bit more clearly. Okay, I'll record an outro if I need one. And that is everything. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching the videos. This has been day 3. I say day 3, I don't necessarily mean calendar days. I mean, that's the ideal of this, is that I do one every day, but let's be honest, nobody can do that kind of shit. Thanks for tuning in. I'm excited about the way that we're going. I feel like I definitely made some progress today, even though I've deleted a good portion of the setting backdrop and have to consider that as we go forward. But I am a mechanics designer, as I mentioned, so I'm excited about making progress on those mechanics, and then we'll see what kind of story we get there. We'll see what kind of story we get from there. We'll see what kind of story we can tell with these mechanics, and then we'll fucking talk about it. We'll talk about it. Yeah. I will talk to you in the next video. I hope you have enjoyed.